This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Magazine publisher and entrepreneur Judith Mancini is sharing captivating conversations with experts in their field about the latest trends in our ever-changing world to help you become healthy, wealthy, and wise. Judith Mancini today will spark your interest and inspire you to lead your best life ever. And now, here's Judith.
Hi, everybody. Well, I've kind of had a bumpy road relaunching the show, but I'm here with you today, and I'm happy to be here. We are going to talk about a lot of things today, not just health, but a few other things. And I want to start right out with MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. Boy, there's lots of things going on. Every day you look and there's something new that you should be taking, something new you should be doing, all to become healthy and try to get longevity. Well, you're not going to be too happy if you have longevity and you're not feeling well. So I want to dive into things that people are trying to tell you to do that I feel are not very healthy for you, or just are not necessary and are very expensive. Excuse me. First, I want to address the image of women and men, but mostly women. You put on a few pounds, or you have a baby and you can't lose your baby fat in your tummy because you know that baby stretches you out. And even if you're not overweight, you still have kind of a soft tummy. Well, you know what works for that? Exercise. If it's really bad because you had twins or triplets, you could do a little tummy tuck, very little surgery, and they take some of that stretched out skin away. That's not going to hurt your health. And I understand we all want to have excuse me, I'm losing my voice already. We all want to have our figure back. But what about the weight? Did you ever think maybe you should cut back on your calories? You should exercise more. You should eat healthier, because we all get cravings. We all like to eat the chocolate, and dark chocolate is good for you. Don't let anybody tell you any different. But is it really good to be sitting there and eating a bag of chips? I don't think so. Look at the ingredients on it. Is it good to be drinking a Coca-Cola or a fizzy drink or the diet brand of it? Nope. Maybe some bubbly water would satisfy your quench that you have, that you're seeking with the carbonation. Look at the different things you eat. Now, why I'm talking about this is there are some injections out there that you don't even have to have a prescription for. Some of them you do because they were formulated to help diabetics. Why? Because it seems that a diabetic has a proclivity to crave sweets, but they can't eat them because of the sugar imbalance in the body. So some of these companies have scientifically formed or developed these injections that you stick in your stomach. And instead of having to go to the doctor, you can get a prescription and get these delivered to your home. And you can give yourself an injection in your tummy. I can't think of anything worse. I mean, sometimes when you have certain diseases, you need to inject yourself, but this is not one of them. And there haven't been any studies on this. Excuse me. There haven't been any studies on this that tell you the efficacy and what they will do and what will happen to you in the future after you lose all this weight. There's a lot of celebrities that have endorsed this. And I understand I'm overweight right now for what I'd like to be. And I don't follow crazy things like that. I just cut back on what I'm eating and I make it healthier. I have to say, I've seen some pictures. Now, they've probably been doctored up because I have to tell you, I hardly believe anything I'm seeing on Facebook with photographs or Instagram or any of these social networks, especially the ones that the older people, the people that are aging like me, 50 and above, they doctor these photos. They might not, but their friend might do it for them, or they might ask somebody else to do it for them. But if you take a real picture of them, you will start to notice, excuse me, that I don't know why this is happening, except the guy is cutting all the grass and the trees outside, so maybe that's what's doing it. Pardon me. You will start to notice that their faces are changing, not just their bodies. So if you lose weight and you lose it all over, excuse me, if you lose it all over, you're going to lose it in your face too. And you're going to end up being really, really wrinkled and scrunchy looking and no definition to your face. And as we age, our face is going to change. We're going to get more wrinkles and smile lines if we're happy. We're going to get more lines up here because we're reading, we're scrunching our face and making funny faces with our grandchildren. It's just natural. But this Ozempic and some of the other ones, and I can't tell you all the names of them, I'm sorry, and I'm not intentionally picking on Ozempic. I'm picking on all of them because they are doing drastic things. Another thing I want to discuss with you is these new things called NADs, NADS. They are like a hormone type thing that is supposed to keep you young and vibrant. They're all injections. You can get injected with vitamin C. You can, excuse me, Juan, can you take me off here for 1 second, please? Sorry, everybody. I don't know what's going on here. These things, you can get vitamin C, you can get the B vitamins, you can get all kinds of injections. And it's very, very expensive. I have a friend who gets the NAD injections. She gets them a couple times a month, sometimes weekly, and they're all over $500. But the worst part is they're injected and you have to be stuck and you have to hold still. And the person has to stay there while this is dripping for a half an hour into your arm. The expense that people are going to for this when there's so many easier ways to do these. Think about supplements, think about healthy diets, think about cutting back on your drinking or not drinking at all. The same thing with smoking and vaping. Try to get all of these habits that we have formed because we're a little nervous or we're a little high strung. Let's get rid of them. Let's live healthy, but you have to help yourself. Don't keep taking these things that are not so regulated or the newest, latest things. Have you noticed how many new vaccines are coming out? Because now we're talking about getting rid of vaccines and vaccines causing autism. Well, I believe they could. We don't know everything that's in a vaccine. And I've spoken already to the fact that a new baby, before they're 9 months old, are taking like 72 different vaccines. Yes, I believe in vaccines. And now I want to tell you the story of my mother, Nora, who did not have a vaccine for polio because it wasn't developed by Dr. Salk at that point. This was back in the 50s when I was 5 years old and my brother was 2 years old. I was going to a private Catholic school at the time for kindergarten, and the polio virus broke out. And instead of everybody being isolated and all like we were in COVID, and somebody developing a vaccine very fast, we just learned to stay away from people. Now, this affected 3 people in my family: my little brother, me, and my mother. My father, fortunately, was working most of the time in an office building, and people were scattered through it. They weren't all clumped together in these crazy offices that they used to have in the 50s. If you looked and watched some of the shows about 50 businessmen and things like that, you could see the way the offices were with the secretaries and the note runners and even the executives. Only a couple of them had private offices. So he was pretty safe from it, but he did get the virus. Now, my brother and I were fortunate, and I say we were fortunate because we only had the virus. I seem to be having a little interference today. I'm not sure what's going on outside, and I apologize for it, but that's life. My mother got all 3 kinds of polio. Nobody talks about this so much. There was the virus, the flu-like symptoms, and then there was the one that affected your lungs and your breathing, and then there was the one that paralyzed you. So she got all 3 kinds. My brother and I only got the flu-like symptoms. And the last thing I remember was we shared a bedroom, my brother and I did, and he was still in a little bed, and I was in a bigger bed. And being kind of a wild child, I guess, I was laying on my back and had my feet up on the wall and my heels against the wall. And then I saw these flashing lights coming through the window in the bedroom and a siren blaring. And the next thing I knew, I heard people stomping through the home. And my father came in and said, everything will be okay. Just stay in your bedroom and play a little bit, and I'll be back in. Well, they took my mother away. And then my poor father had to tell my brother and me what had happened and that she had become very sick. Well, a couple days later, my father decided to take my brother and me up to my grandmother's house in Los Angeles. We were living more in Central California at the time. He was running a business up there. So we were packed into the car and driven up to my grandma's, and we ended up staying there forever until we were in junior high is when I remember changing from my grandmother's house because she was becoming elderly and she couldn't take care of us all the time. But she did learn how to drive and drove us all over, and that was a necessity, and she was in her late 50s at the time. But my mother, we didn't get to see for quite a long time. And then she was in Rancho Los Amigos, and that has been on the internet quite a bit lately because people now are talking about vaccines, and they show pictures of it in the big rooms where the iron lungs were. Now, at that time, it was deemed okay for us to go visit because the polio virus type thing was not any longer active in these people's bodies, just the after effects were. So it was safe, and it wasn't unusual to see people visiting their family members who had been struck down by the polio. And my mother was in this big room, and my grandma would drive us with her newfound driver's license and her new car. She would drive my brother and me to Rancho Los Amigos, and we could go in this room that was very, very large. It was bigger than a large office. It was bigger than, oh my gosh, I would say it was like as big as a football field, not with the surrounding area, but the yardage. It was huge. And these, you've probably seen them on the internet, these iron lungs laid out, place by place next to each other. And we would visit my mother. We could barely reach her. Her head was the only thing that was out of the iron lung, and then there was the rubber around it so that none of the air could get out, so that they could have positive pressure inside for the air to fill up her lungs and release it, fill up her lungs and release it. Her head was out and she could speak, fortunately. If you don't think that was scary for a 5 and 7-year-old, and to see their mother like that and hi mommy and give her a kiss so she could kiss us back, I can't imagine. It was scary for us. I can't imagine how terrifying it was for my mother and all the other patients. And at that time, those halls, if you will, where they had the iron lungs, they even had some children in them. They eventually got the children into their own separate area in the iron lungs, but they still had young adults, teenagers, 17, 16, and up in there with them. Can you imagine the terrifying thoughts that went through their heads? Rancho Los Amigos, I don't care what anybody says about it, was a wonderful place. The nurses, the helpers, the volunteers, everybody was wonderful and treated these people like they were kings and queens in these iron lungs. It was a horrible, horrible time. I remember when my grandma wanted to speak privately with my mother, and she would give us a little bit of money. You only needed a little bit at that time to go to the commissary, the cafeteria, if you will, and in these big freezers, if any of you remember those, and you should, because we're all about the same age, 50 and above, you could get ice cream out of them. And what we would always get were these little squares of vanilla and a chocolate and a strawberry, and they were wrapped in cardboard, and you could see the picture on them if you were too young to read, like my brother was at the time. So we would get those, and we'd get the little wooden spoon, and we could go right outside the hall, and we could eat our ice cream, and then by the time we were finished, we could go back and see my mommy. It was a horrific time, and eventually my mother was moved to a house, and her mother flew out. Now remember, my grandma who raised us was my father's mother, and the woman who flew out from Indianapolis was my mother's mother. And they had a small house that my grandfather got for my mother so she could get out of the hospital. And she was still in an iron lung. So they were trying to move her from being in an iron lung to a chest respirator that was shaped like a bubble. But my grandma Mary from Indianapolis thought it would be better to move my mother back to Indianapolis, and she would be with her other sisters and brothers. Now, these were all adults at the time, and gratefully, none of them got polio. The worst place that was hit the hardest with polio was California. I don't know what that means. I'm sure there's a study somewhere. I find it very difficult to find information on the polio epidemic. My grandfather, my father's father, graciously got, and I don't know how he did this, the Air Force to take my mother in her iron lung and my grandmother, Grandma Mary, in an airplane and move them to Indianapolis, where for the rest of my mother's life, thanks to my grandfather on my father's side, they were able to live in little homes in Indianapolis where a nurse was hired and my Grandma Mary took care of my mother. She, by this time, had a portable respirator on her, the bubble type. There are pictures on the internet of my mother because she was very vocal and spoke out, and she would have to talk like this. Yes, I am in what's called a portable iron lung. Can you imagine having to speak like that the rest of your life? And she could not move below her neck. She was totally dependent on the nurse that was hired and my Grandma Mary. We children were still being raised by my father's mother, Grandma Louise, which is my middle name, my daughter's middle name. And my grandson's name is Nico Louis, after me and my mother and grandmother. So my mother lived to be, I don't know exactly the age. I've never exactly known her age. But I was pregnant with my son, and I was 25 years old at that time. She lived and passed away just before my son was born. We would go back to visit her in the summers, and she was able to be lifted out of her bed into a wheelchair where we could put a battery on the back of the wheelchair to keep her respirator going. We learned how to monitor and adjust the positive and negative pressures in her respirator. This is how I spent my childhood summers, and my brother spent his childhood summers visiting my mother, who must have been absolutely crushed that she couldn't be running up and down in the park and pushing us because of this horrible polio virus. So fast forward to the time I was in high school. Sometime shortly in the 50s, Dr. Salk, there was a doctor before him who put together a vaccine for polio. The first one didn't work. Excuse me. Dr. Salk was able to scientifically put together a new polio vaccine. And that alleviated, eradicated, and totally got rid of the polio virus in the United States and then eventually the world. So why I'm telling you this story is when people get very ill and they have these horrible diseases with no vaccines, it doesn't just affect them, it affects their family, it affects their friends. It's a horrible, horrible thing. So I am not here today to tell you that you shouldn't take vaccines. Look at the COVID vaccine. What happened with the COVID vaccine is it was developed very fast. This is my opinion, by the way. And there were things put into it to speed it up in the process of getting it released. Yes, it helped some people, but it also didn't help others. And I'm sure that happens with a lot of vaccines. But I think what they need to be looking at are, and they are looking at things like mRNA, which is a whole nother show, and other things that are in the vaccines. We don't know everything that's in vaccines. And even though all of this controversy is going on, some of these pharmaceutical companies are still coming out with new vaccines that haven't been tested enough, haven't looked at every single ingredient. There's got to be things. This is sometimes what happens when you do your podcast remotely instead of in the studio. And I apologize. Some of these vaccines must have preservatives of some sort in them. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm just telling you what I think. Now they're looking at the vaccines that children take, and they're looking at all sorts of things that they feel could cause autism, because you all know, I'm not going to quote the numbers, but you know that autism is growing and growing and growing, particularly in the United States. I don't hear too much about it in other countries. All of this makes me suspicious. Now they're going after Tylenol, and some of the doctors on television are saying, I don't ever prescribe Tylenol for my pregnant ladies. And then they say, but if they have a high fever, this is what they should take, Tylenol. And it's a known fact that the ingredients in it cut a fever faster than anything else. So I am grateful for MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, for looking at these different vaccines and looking at these different products that are being given to people in their medications. When I was growing up, my grandma that raised us, Grandma Louise, I don't remember her ever taking any pills, but she made us live a healthy life. She never had a tray full of pills next to her. She went to the doctor very seldom. I don't even remember her going to the doctor. I do remember me going to the doctor because I had to have some kind of booster shot for polio or something. I can't remember why. That's the only time I ever remember being taken to the doctor by Grandma Louise, and the same with my brother. But today, people lean on prescription drugs. You got a cough, get something to stop it from your doctor. What about breathing in something like mentholatum and steam to kind of clear out your sinuses and all? That's what we used to do when we used to get a cough, or we felt like we were going to get a cough. We'd put our head with a towel over a hot steaming bowl of water. And nobody was dying from overdoses of pills and prescription drugs. Today, you can go into maybe an assisted living place. A lot of people are put in assisted living places because their families say they can't take care of their prescriptions. They don't know when to take pills. What? So I just told you, I grew up with my grandparents. Okay, I was raised by them. Family is falling apart. That's a whole nother discussion. Do you live with your in-laws or your own family? Do they come to you, is what I mean, when they are becoming a little elderly and maybe a little lighter in their step? Or do you just slap another pill at them? Get a pill to sleep, get a pill to wake up, get a pill to eat your lunch, get a pill for this, get a pill for that. You have a headache, go out and get some fresh air. Now, I'm not talking about migraines. Migraines are a totally different category of headaches. And if you suddenly get severe headaches, it could mean something worse in your head. I am not saying never to go to a physician, a doctor, a qualified one. We need doctors. But our doctors need to work with us about simple things like diet, exercise, and all. We, in our house, we don't take a lot of pills. My husband is taking a blood thinner now. He had a heart attack back in 1997, and they replaced an artery, I guess. I can't remember the details. It was so long ago. He checks in with a cardiologist. He's never had to have that replaced, and he eats healthier. Pat me on the back. I straightened him out, and he's still with me. We married in 1996. He had the heart attack in 1997, and here we are. So he just needs to walk more. People need to walk. You cannot have good circulation and good lungs working if you don't exercise. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and run a race. I'm telling you, you need to walk. There are lots of things on the internet now that can give you a plan for walking. Me, I go out and walk around our condominium association here, our grounds. That's as far as I go, because if my husband does have a problem, I want to be close by, and I take my phone with me. He doesn't walk anymore. He sits. I'm after him all the time to get up. So we got him a walker, and now he's walking better, and his circulation is better. He does take a drug. I'm not down on drugs, but I explored this one thoroughly. But here's the catch. If he got up and walked, he probably wouldn't need that pill. And as you know, I'm telling you, I am against pills. So I don't know how people, even with insurance, can afford some of this medication. And the reason I'm talking about this now, this is MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. Do you know how much his blood thinner cost? $500 a prescription. Seriously? That's with insurance. Nobody can afford it. Well, we worked it out. We're taking care of it. I'm certainly not going to stop taking care of him. But this is one thing that RFK Jr. Bobby is doing with MAHA. He's also looking at the pharmaceutical companies and asking why these drugs are so expensive. He's looking at doctors. Now, you doctors beware, the ones that are just trying to make a buck. Quit giving people lab prescriptions to have everything taken in their blood work that they don't need when they grow older. Quit giving them prescriptions that are so expensive that most people couldn't afford them. Find something better. Prescribe something better. How about talking to people about their diet and their exercise and their mental state of mind? If you want longevity, you have to have the right mindset. And by going to the doctor all the time and taking the pill to sleep and taking the pill to wake up and taking the pill when you get nervous is not helping you. Isolating yourself and never seeing anybody is not helping you. You need to remain social and see your friends. You need to see your grandchildren if you have grandchildren. And don't cut off your son and your daughter. just because you disagree. I love my daughter, but we don't think the same politically all the time. So we have nice discussions about it. My daughter is beautiful, and she is healthy and quite the adventurer. And she's raising her boys the same way. And they eat healthy diets. We went to Mexico with them. And my daughter and son-in-law treated us to this trip to Mexico about 4 years ago. And I was astonished to see my young grandsons. They were very young, like 3, 4, and 8, something like that. I can't remember exactly how old they were back then. What they were eating. You know, in Mexico where we stay, we always stay on the coast, and lots of fresh fish are brought in every day. My one grandson is a picky eater. He likes, the youngest one, he likes the vegetarian menu. He was eating beans and rice all the time. He absolutely loved it. And the fresh guacamole, the great avocado, and the pico de gallo with the onions and the tomatoes and things like that. My older grandson, by 4 years, was eating the fish. He would get bowls of octopus. He would get fillets of fish. I only chuckle because I don't think when my kids were growing up and I took them to Mexico, they ate all the Mexican food and the fish and all, but not so robustly as my grandchildren. So I get a kick out of it, and it's fun, and I'm glad they're growing up to be healthy. Well, okay, what time is it here? It's 9:37. So what I want to tell you about, instead of taking these injections and pills for everything, I remember I told you I would find you a side hustle and one that would always help you and other people. And on my previous show, we introduced LifeWave. And Wendy Badra Hinker stood in for me on my first show because she was my guest and I had an emergency and I couldn't do the show. So she stepped in and she talked about LifeWave. And if you'd like to go back and see that, that's on YouTube. My first show after relaunching, and it's a very interesting thing. Let me tell you a little bit about LifeWave. I did join LifeWave as a brand person, and I couldn't be more pleased with it. These are little patches that are about this big, like a quarter, and they will improve your health, and they will also give you things like energy. The premier patch is X39, and it helps in all sorts of things, well-being, better health, well-being. And I use that every day. Well, I was running late today and I didn't get my patch on, so I'm sorry to tell you that, but you'll see it next week. X39, as I say, is their premier patch, and you can listen to Wendy on that show, and we'll have her back again also. Scrolling across the crayon at the bottom is my address at LifeWave. And if you go to that, you can find all the different patches. You can sign up to be a premier customer, or you can sign up to join the business opportunity, which I am doing. And you just go over to it, sign in, go over to it. You can, shows you how to sign up. There's lots of information on there, and every patch is on there, and it tells you what they do. I use several of them. I've been this week using the extra energy ones where you put them on your chest here or on your ankles, that they show you how to do that. As I said, they're only this big. I've also used the Eon, which helps you with your stress, and I'm under a tremendous amount of stress right now, trying to do too much, as I always do. But I'm getting older and I'm not handling my stress as well. So I tried this Eon, and boy, it's so wonderful. It helps me sleep. It calms me down. I don't yell at my husband because I just fixed him lunch and he doesn't want me to fix him lunch because I'm in a hurry and he wants to be relaxed. Really good things. But there are so many patches. There's one to help you sleep at night. And I put it on my foot and I have the best REM sleep ever. I am more relaxed, more rested, healthier than I've been in a long time. Now, the good things about LifeWave is it is a little business opportunity for you. You can build your business like any other direct marketing business, and they are very helpful. They have education tools, information tools, they have videos, they have everything. And I highly, highly recommend them. These little quarter-sized pieces have non-irritating adhesive around them. And then the little patch itself goes on you. They're non-transdermal. They have no medication in them. Non-transdermal, for you that don't know that out there, nothing goes through your skin. A lot of the patches that you see on television have different things like lidocaine in them for pain and this and that and everything else. And then it goes through your skin into your blood system and all. These stimulate your stem cells with phototherapy. Phototherapy is the light coming down and stimulating the light within your body, and your body is bringing it down, and they stimulate your stem cells. Did you know the stem cells take care of everything in your entire body? And by the time you're in your late 20s, almost all of them are gone or not working. LifeWave, with their patches, gets this energy from the sun and the light and all into your body and re-stimulates the stem cells. So I've tested it on my husband for the pain. There is a pain one also. It had a shoulder that didn't work like a lot of men do. They carry their briefcases, they do this, they play golf, they play tennis. Maybe they're like Tyrus and they do wrestling. They get shoulders that don't work so swell, and even women get them. I put these patches on him. I had taken him to the chiropractor the month before, and I've done that many, many times, and nothing ever helped him. He would have to take, like the Advil or something. But they never went away. So I patched him up. 2 patches in the pain patches, and you put them on close to it. You can put it right on the pain spot or off to the side. It shows you in the little pamphlet that comes with it. His pain was starting to go away in less than 10 minutes. I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it's the absolute truth. And by the end of the day, it was totally gone. Well, we continued to patch for a couple of weeks and decided he could stop patching for a while. And you know what? He has never had to patch those up again. But we do use X39 because that helps our well-being. But his pain went totally away. And if you go to lifewave.com, Judith Mancini, you can access some of the videos and testimonials that people have for their patching experience. I wouldn't be without them anymore. And I don't take pills ever. I never have really, because I've never wanted to become addicted to them. So I've never taken pills. I did take, I can't think of the name of it, the one that helps you sleep at night, that prescription drug, after my son passed, because I was really having a problem. That was before I met LifeWave. And as soon as I met LifeWave, I was off those immediately. I didn't want to become dependent, but I already had and didn't realize it. So as soon as I got into LifeWave and learning about it, I was sold. And I didn't become involved in the business right away, but now I'm glad I did. And just so you know, you start out low and you never make a lot of money when you start out at a direct marketing company. You have to build your business. And some of these people have built their business for a couple of years, and they are making, this is hard to believe, but you can read the statistics and read all about it. They make $25,000 a week. I really questioned that. And then I looked at it. This is the most legitimate, has the most integrity of any company I've ever seen in direct marketing. And as far as I'm concerned, in every other business, these people are winning awards as the fastest growing direct marketing company. They've won 2 years in a row, and they're up for this coming year also. The company with the most integrity and building the fastest in direct marketing. It's an unbelievable thing. So do yourself a favor. I'm going to end a little bit early today because for some reason I'm getting too much noise on this podcast, and I apologize profusely to you. I want to thank you for coming and watching and listening, and just check out that LifeWave. Next week, I'm going to make sure that nobody is interrupting my show. Thank you, Juan, for helping me out today. Juan is my wonderful, marvelous engineer who keeps me straight and keeps me going. Thank you. Thank you all for listening in. And remember, cherish yesterday, dream tomorrow, and live today.